Jay Bilas, the popular analyst for the mothership. He'll be on the call. NBA draft coverage coming up tonight starts at 8 Eastern on ESPN. Who do you think is going number 2?
I think it'll be Brandon Miller of Alabama, primarily because he's 6'9" and he shoots it really well. And Scoot Henderson, the one thing he hasn't figured out yet is the shooting piece. He's not a great perimeter shooter. He can make shots, but he's not a consistent perimeter shooter. And that's one thing in a league that puts a premium on shooting. My guess is Charlotte's going to lean toward the 6'9" guy that can really shoot it.
How much of a concern is that? In a league where everybody can shoot, you got a guy who can score but can't shoot in Scoot Henderson.
I mean, it's certainly a concern, but he does so many other things at an elite level that I think he's going to be a capable shooter. And he improved from his first year in the G League to his second. Like, he's the only player I know of that's played 2 years in the G League out of high school before going into the draft. He graduated high school early to play in the G League, and his numbers actually were better, offensive rating, rebounds, assists, better than Jalen Green when he was in the G League. You know, he's a ridiculous athlete, and he reminds you a little bit of when Russell Westbrook was at UCLA. Yeah, I'm not saying Russell Westbrook now, but at UCLA, he's impressive and he's really competitive. So I don't want to say it's a coin flip, Dan, but I think it's a close call. But I would certainly go toward what I consider to be the better prospect in Miller, simply because he has the shooting part figured out, and he's super athletic and long and rangy and rebounds and all that.
What would be a reasonable rookie season for Victor Wembanyama?
Well, he's going to be an impact player right away, especially on the defensive end. I think he'll be an all-star. He was raised for this, and he's incredibly productive. A lot of guys that are 19 years old, international players, they've not been lead dogs on their team. But he led that French league in scoring, rebounding, block shots, and I found this to be compelling. So Rudy Gobert played in the same division in France. He played in 27 games in that division. Wembanyama played in 34, so it's 7 more games for Wembanyama. Wembanyama blocked over 50 more shots than Gobert did. And I get the feeling that people have that, oh, here we go again, more hype. I look at the word hype as kind of, fake, like it's almost, Barnum and Bailey Barker stuff. This is fact, man. This guy is the real deal, and nobody's making this up. The only thing that stops him, and I'm not saying he's not going to have rookie growing pains and all that stuff, or some games he looks bad. Every rookie has that. But the only thing that derails him in his career is going to be an injury, and he's not shown any tendency for injury. He does a lot of injury prevention. This isn't made up. He's the best I've seen, best prospect since LeBron, and that includes some really good prospects.
Okay, let me ask you about that. Knowing what you knew about LeBron when he was going into the draft, not since then, and what you know about Victor Wembanyama, if both were on the board right now, coming out of high school, or Victor Wembanyama out of the French league, who would you take?
I've asked myself that question a lot because I think it's profoundly interesting. And you're right. It's difficult to dismiss, what LeBron's done afterwards, because you'd always take the sort of bird in the hand. You get a guy that plays till he's 38 at this level, which is hard to imagine. But in today's game, I might lean toward Victor because of the way he impacts the game at both ends. The problem is, so when LeBron came out, you'll remember this. I was saying, best high school player I've ever seen. Just as skilled as Garnett or Kobe, but more physically imposing. Like the physically imposing part with LeBron, he was like a cyborg at age 18, and you knew it was going to get better. And the only thing we questioned there is he going to improve as a shooter, because he wasn't a knockdown shooter. But I mean, look what he's done. And I think Wembanyama is the same kind of, he's can't miss. And you don't say that about everybody. At least I try not to. He is absolutely can't miss, and you hate to say it, but injury is the only thing that
Yeah.
stops him from being truly great.
Yeah, and I think I would probably lean towards Victor Wembanyama because knowing what LeBron could do, having seen him play a football game in high school and a basketball game in high school, he was just bigger and better and more imposing than everybody. I didn't think he could shoot, but he was the best passer on the floor at his height. You look at Victor Wembanyama, I said this last hour, he'll have a game where he has 10 blocks this year. And Popovich will put him in places where he can succeed. Pop never cares about rookie of the year or all-star appearances or any of that stuff. And I think that that'll be beneficial for him as well. Whereas LeBron went into Cleveland, he didn't have the guidance that Victor Wembanyama is going to have.
Yeah, and LeBron was more publicized because he was here. Remember, he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. As a high school player. We were putting his games on television back then, which seemed like a foreign concept. Now we see high school games all the time, but back then you were like, wait a minute, dial it down a notch. And when I said he was the best high school player I'd ever seen, I got criticized for that. Now I don't think you would take heat for that kind of thing, but that was the subject of criticism in 2003. But if Wembanyama played here, I think the one thing, like him being a lead dog on his team, leading the league in scoring, rebounding, blocks at 19. Most international players his age are role players, and that league has a bunch of former NBA guys in it. And look what he did to it in a 40-minute game in international worlds. And then he came over here. You probably saw this, but if anybody hasn't, they're available. He played 2 games in Las Vegas against the G League Ignite, which had Scoot Henderson on it, Leonard Miller, guys that are going to go in the draft tonight. And he averaged 36.5 points in the 2 games. He had 37 and 36 in 2 games. I mean, he's the real thing. And you tell me what you think of this. If Ralph Sampson were born 19 years ago, maybe we'd have a little bit of a comparison. And by that, I mean, if Ralph were born 19 years ago, he would have been raised differently in the game. When we were in college, you go to practice, and then at some point in practice, the coach would say, all right, big guys down here, guards down here. And the big guys would do back to the basket stuff. If they ever faced up, there was no 3-point line back then, but if they were ever faced up on the perimeter, they'd like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, who do you think you are? But Wembanyama operates at the 3-point line. He can operate out of pick and rolls. He handles the ball he's like a 6'2" guard that somebody put in a 7'5" body. It's jaw dropping. It's remarkable.
We're talking to Jay Bilas. He'll be on the call. Malika Andrews will be the host, NBA draft coverage, and that'll start at 8 Eastern on the mothership coming up tonight. What do you think is the biggest mistake talent evaluators, GMs make when it comes to assessing how good somebody is going to be in the NBA?
I don't know that I can put my finger on any one. It's not just one thing. And I think everybody makes those mistakes. Like Nikola Jokic was drafted number 41 overall, and he was taken in the second round. And it wasn't because, talent evaluators just don't get it. It's hard to do. And it's hard to gauge. Like, we're going to look back on this draft for sure. I don't think with Victor, but we're going to say in 5 years, 10 years, we're going to go, we should redraft this thing. The ninth drafted player was better than the second drafted player. That happens every year.
Yeah.
And there's somebody that comes out of the second round that turns out to be an all NBA player, not all NBA, but an all-star player. It happens. But there's so much of this that you're kind of betting on the future and trying to project. Like, one of the things I think about, so Grant Hill, when he was a freshman, if he had come out after his freshman year, we would have said, can't shoot. Look at his 3-point percentage. The guy can't shoot. Athletic, but can't shoot. But he came out as a senior and he could shoot then. And he was an amazing player. Like, he was the Sandy Koufax of basketball his first 7 years. His numbers compared to only a handful of the all-time greats. And that's what evaluators are trying to do, is project where they're going to be. And the thing is, projecting heart and competitiveness in that league is difficult. And some guys have different, personal makeups that make them better players in the long run. I've found it to be really hard. I'm a lot more humble about it than I used to be, and humility is not my strength at any stage.
Yeah, you went to Duke. The thing that the thing. Okay, who's got a bigger ego, you or JJ Redick?
Oh, my ego is bigger. Yeah, and
Really?
rightfully so. Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
He's got JJ has a lot to be humble about. Let's put it that way. He was a better player, but it ends there. I found out a lot about JJ last night. Do you know that he doesn't wear a belt? He never wears a belt, and I find that very odd. And then and he's very worried about tie length. His tie has to be the right length, and he takes 3 or 4 times to tie it to get it the right length. He's got some issues.
He'll be on the draft coverage tonight with Jay and Malika and company. I'd like to find out how much you want to be great, like the work ethic. And how do you find that out? Of somebody is hungry and wants to be great and I bring, like Joker. I don't know if he was hungry to be great. It just felt like he was a big guy, but there's been a ton of big guys. But then something happened or something clicked. And then trying to gauge that of, Peyton Manning's obsessed with being the greatest quarterback of all time. Maybe Ryan Leaf wasn't obsessed with being the greatest, or Tom Brady's obsessed with being great. Jordan wanted to be the greatest. How do you find that in somebody's DNA?
I don't know. I mean, you do the most research you can. That's why scouts get the games early to see who comes out and practices early and stay late to see who stays there afterwards. They do a ton of intel, finding out what's the work ethic like, what's the player like, talking to other people about how they treat people. Sometimes you can see it. Other times you have to, you try to hear about it as best you can. I'm not sure, like the players are so programmed now. Everybody knows what to say. And this will resonate in our age group. Like I remember during the draft process, a coaching buddy of mine said, everybody's Eddie Haskell now, like everybody, hello, Mrs. Cleaver, you look nice. And then they turn around and they're themselves after the draft. And, guys that weren't in great shape during the year, their best condition, all of a sudden are cut up and ready after the season ends. But the ones that are ready to be pros, like there is a maturity factor. Guys can increase their maturity as they go on. Maybe like a JJ Redick could be an example. He would probably say that his first couple years at Duke, he wasn't a focused player. And then he became one, and he became a craftsman and got in amazing shape and worked incredibly hard. But if he came out after his sophomore year, I'm sure people would have said, well, he doesn't work as hard or stuff like that. But it's not, I'm not sure it's a switch that flips, but guys do mature.
In the final 30 seconds, do you have a favorite player in the draft that we can keep an eye
on? Yeah, I mean, I think that Taylor Hendricks of Central Florida is really good. He's a prototypical kind of 3-and-D stretch 4. He's not sensational, but he's so good, and he'll be one of those guys that he's so solid and he can shoot it from 3 and block shots and rebound. I think he's a top 6 guy. And then Cam Whitmore is going to be really interesting because he didn't play as much because of injury out of Villanova. And he's got an NFL body. I mean, he's a Mack truck out there. So I really like him. I don't know that he's going to go top 5. It'll probably be between 7 and 10.
Good to talk to you. Have fun tonight, Jay. Thank you.
Always. Thank you, Dan.
That's Jay Bilas, ESPN college basketball analyst. He'll be on the call tonight. They got a plethora of people there. They got Woj will be there. Malik Andrews will be there. JJ Redick will be there. The coverage starts at 8 Eastern on the Mothership. We're back after this in the Dan Patrick Show.